In one click, you could shift between 4 powerful Obsidian modes, all thanks to new features with Obsidian Bases that no one is taking advantage of. In this video, I'll share 4 Obsidian systems that you can use to fit your brain. Instant dashboards for your inner guide to map the world inside and around you. Instant dashboards for producers who are focused on getting things done. Instant dashboards for synthesizers who want to combine ideas in ways no one else can. And a playground for creatives to bring their best work to life. And if you want to start immediately, I've bundled all of this inside my Obsidian Bases Masterclass. Join and you'll instantly get each mode in your Obsidian Vault, as well as pro-level guidance on how to master each approach. Or hey, just follow along and learn how to do it yourself. All these bases rely on switching workspaces. Let's immediately go into settings and check that out. What we want to jump into is core plugins, scroll to the bottom, ensure workspaces is toggled on. It likely is, but just in case it isn't, this is where you go. Then hotkeys, and then let's type in the upper right, workspaces, and what you'll notice, you have 4 different commands that you can assign a hotkey. We only need to assign a hotkey to manage workspace layouts, which is Command, Control, Option, 5. And then same thing with workspaces save layout, same thing, those 3 modifier keys, and 8. I don't put it as 6 because I want 5 and 8 to have a significant physical space between them. I'll show you why momentarily. Once all that is set, now when I hit Command, Option, Control, 5, boom, we have this amazing view. Manage workspace layouts. Right now you can see I'm in this view called Base Blank Slate, but I can load Base Blank with Recents, and then suddenly we have the recent notes showing up here as a dynamic view in my left-hand sidebar. This is the power that we're about to unlock. Now, whenever I feel overwhelmed, too many tabs, whatever, I can just immediately switch back to Base Blank Slate, and you see we're back to scratch. Are you ready? Let's get into the inner guide right now. So if I hit Manage Workspace Layouts, which is Command, Control, Option, 5, I can jump into the inner guide, Dynamic Days. Now, when I load this, what you'll notice is I'm immediately, instantly into a dashboard that gets me reflecting on my life, what I've been doing, and where I would like to go. How are we accomplishing this? In the middle of the screen, this is just a tab, it's just a note, but in this case, it's a special base called Calendar. Now, as I've covered in other videos, a base can have multiple views, and this allows bases to be super powered, and that's actually what you're seeing in my left and right hand sidebars. So in the middle, the base itself, I just have all of my calendar days sorted by file name, Z to A. That means the latest dates will sort at the top and then older ones further down. Let's pretend that we just open up one of these daily notes. So what do we see over here in the left-hand sidebar? So just for clarity's sake, I will expand it a little bit. And this is the same calendar base that we see in the center, but it's in a specific view. Days in a table. I'm telling myself this is a table by month, and I love this, by month. So if we go to sort, we can see it's sorting by file name, but it's grouped by the created month. And so at a glance, I can see all the different daily notes that I've created for the month of, in this case, November, then the month of October, the month of September, and it's just going in reverse chronological order. Very pleasing and easy to understand and look at. Conversely, if we go to the right-hand sidebar, what do we see? Again, we're in the same base calendar, but this time it's days list by month. So now it's a list view, not a table view. So it's showing similar content to what's on the left, but you notice the difference? On the right, it's showing what each of those daily notes links out to. So let's try that for today's date together. So I'll open today's daily note, and an interesting term I've heard for the first time today is steel manning. So when I open up steel manning, it's the opposite of a straw man argument. So in our daily note, steel manning, and did you notice what happened? In the upper right, now we have the new note showing up that we just created and everything it links out to. This is amazingly powerful. Now, as we're still in Inner Guide, I want to show you one more of these instant workspaces. So I hit my magic hotkey, and let's go from Inner Guide, Dynamic Days, and actually zoom out and above a little bit to Dynamic Reviews. So when you really want to review and reflect a little bit deeper, now check out what's happening. Again, In the middle, I have my main calendar base, and I have all these different views I could jump into, but the left and the right are showing me very special things. On the left-hand side, reviews by year. This means in 2025, these are all the important notes that I've written over the course of the year, and you can see when they were created right here. That's the power of a table. We can scroll and see all sorts of different information. We can see at the very top of the year, I had my 2024 year review write-up, and shortly thereafter, my year preview. And throughout the year, all these different notes. I'm often like, where did I put that thing that was really important to me, that really important review? Now it's at my fingertips. I just hit the magic workspace hotkey, and then I jump into dynamic reviews. For more information, I go over to the right-hand sidebar, and again, I can see the same list as on the left, but the value with this one is now I can see everything that this note links out to. Extremely, extremely helpful. So that's the inner guide, and I love it. But actually, the very first workspace view that I created was for my producer archetype. So now let's jump into producer mode. And hey, if this is all feeling a bit overwhelming, or if you want to learn all the ins and outs of Obsidian Bases so that you can customize this to fit your needs, check out my Obsidian Bases Masterclass. Inside, I go through every part of this and more step by step. I explain Obsidian Bases, workspaces, templates, all of that. And I'll give you all those things as downloads. That way you can skip the build out, capture what you need, and see your most important ideas exactly when you need to see them. Scan here or check out the description below to get started. Next up, producer mode. I'm loading producer dynamic projects. What you'll immediately notice is on my right-hand sidebar, I have my active projects. They're right here, they're staring me in the face, and they are sorted. If we go over to sort, we see they're sorted by rank, with higher ones ranked first. Such a useful view. Right now, I'm talking about the Bases deliverable, and I actually just delivered this for our Linking Your Thinking workshop community. That's why it was ranked 5.1. Really important. But guess what is coming up in the wings? Jumping back into the book, we're going to start working on block 2, so I'm going to give that a rank. And did you notice what I just did? Just by switching workspace views to producer dynamic projects, I'm immediately thinking as a producer and prioritizing my bandwidth. I'm saying the book is going to grow in importance, and Bases, because I basically just finished it, I'm going to drop that down just a little bit. There are a few loops I still need to close, but the book is now going to become the most important project for me. It is active. Now, if you're curious, how am I getting these active projects? You can do it a million different ways. I like to keep this one pretty simple, and it is simply under efforts, projects, and then I have 3 folders: active, simmering, and sleeping. And if you look over in the right-hand sidebar, what do you notice? Active projects, simmering projects, and sleeping projects. Simmering projects I love. They're not active, but they're simmering in the back of my mind. And then sleeping projects are completed, archived, done, or just in cold storage. Maybe just an artifact that I can return to. All of this at my fingertips. We see a recents view on the left-hand sidebar, and then projects organized by folder, and probably by rank as well. So again, this is basically a singular view of what we just saw in the right-hand sidebar. But when I jump into an actual note, let's say the Bases deliverable for Linking Your Thinking Workshop 16, let's close that. Now I still have all this beautiful information on what I want to prioritize remaining in the right-hand sidebar. How powerful is that? Okay, so let's jump back into our Manage Workspace layouts. And just like Inner Guide had a ground level view and then also had a view where we rise above, same with Producer. Dynamic Projects is the ground level view, but then if we rise above, that's Dynamic ENPs, which stands for Efforts and Projects. Let's go ahead and load that, and I want you to notice what happens to the left-hand sidebar. Here we go. Boom. Okay, so now we have areas of effort, and I'm going to make this a little bit smaller so we can see a little bit of what's happening in the folder system. Over on the right-hand side, we got rid of sleeping. It's not really as important, but we see active and simmering. And then over in the right-hand side, we see areas of effort, also known as AOEs. So an area of effort is something that's going to have multiple projects. That's why it's this area of effort, if you will. I rarely use emojis in file names, but for projects and areas of effort, I do. So if we jump over to active projects, check this out, we can see that the light book, block 2, has this sort of science-y research. I think it's called an alembic, but looks kind of like a flask. And that's the emoji. It's telling me it's a project. And if we scroll over, we can see what it links up to. In this case, the area of effort for the Linking Your Thinking book. So that LYT book is exactly what we see over here as the area of effort. If we look at how we're getting these results, it is just looking at the folder efforts and then specifically the subfolder AOE. So if we go efforts and toggle down areas, we can see it is just pulling up the areas of effort where all these notes exist. But it's not just a static folder by alphabetical or something. It's actually sorted by the rank that I've given each area of effort. I can see the last modified time and all sorts of other information, all at my fingertips. But if we rise above into executive producer mode, I might recognize I have a very important area of effort, but no active project. Something's out of balance there, and I'm going to fix that by either creating the active project or recognizing it's in simmering projects and then moving it up to active. Do you see how this is working? My producer archetype is coming alive when I jump into one of these two producer modes. And guess what? Whenever it's overwhelming, I go from here back over to base, blank with recents, and that allows me to see the recent notes that I've touched. And you can see we've touched these two projects live, and now they're sorting at the top. How great is that? You can close all of your notes, and if you just jump back into this particular workspace, you'll know with certainty that you can find the notes that you were just working on. Next, we'll explore the workspaces for the synthesizer. By the way, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel. Every month, I break down what's new in Obsidian, how to get more from your workflows and use cases, and the best new tools and ideas to superpower your thinking. So subscribe and set your notifications so you don't miss a thing. All right, without further ado, we're going to jump into Synthesizer Mode, and there are actually 3 different tantalizing workspaces. Let's start with Synthesizer Dynamic Relationships. This one is insane. It's nuts. It's supercharged. It's highly powerful, and it takes a few seconds to load. So what is going on here? Number 1, I encourage everyone to create a note called Bases. In this note, it's a map of content, and you want it to map to all of your bases. So all my bases are here. And why that's important is because, as you'll see with this particular workspace we're looking at, now you can give manual notes. You can't type out notes in a base. So you need a place where you say what the base is about. In this case, there's a base called Related, there's a base called Unrequited, and I'm going to talk through both of those right now and what they're doing in the sidebars, because it's pretty wild. So let's start in the upper left corner. This is the Related base. And this is showing unrequited notes that are sharing friends with the active note. In this case, the active note is bases. So if I jump over to a different note called Aurora Boreas, we're going to see that these dynamic fields, these dynamic bases on the sidebars change. So there's nothing in this. There's a lot here, and we see some other interesting ones showing up in the right-hand sidebar. So what's going on here is unrequited and sharing friends. These are the most relevant. These are the most relevant because they are notes that point directly to the active note. The active note, however, is not pointing back, but they share 3 links in common. And so we can see that the note called calendar, the note called days, the note called garden are all unrequited and sharing friends. And in particular, the calendar note is sharing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 different notes in common. So there's probably a really strong overlap between my active note and the calendar note. Do you see how powerful this could be? Imagine you're doing your dissertation and you have your main dissertation note here and then all these unrequited notes that are sharing mutual friends, and you're like, whoa, wait a second, I need to make the actual explicit link between these 2 notes. And that's going to be very helpful for your research to ensure that nothing slips through the cracks. Okay, then we go to this unrequited base, and this is where these notes here in the left-hand sidebar point. They link to the active note, but the active note does not link back. So again, that's another way to make sure nothing falls through the cracks on your research or anything else that you're working on. Now, if we go over to the right-hand side, I'll just talk through these really fast. They're a little bit more complicated, especially the last one. But in the right-hand sidebar, the first two, this was the most relevant. This unrequited was likely relevant. But if we go on the right-hand sidebar, not linked but sharing friends, this is possibly relevant. That means that these notes showing up here are not directly linked to the active note, but they are indeed sharing at least 2 links in common. And if you're curious how to set this up, well, we can go to filters and you can see, look at this, try to copy it yourself, and best of luck to you. You can do that. Moving forward, the strangest one, and this comes from the CEO of Obsidian, Capano, who is just trying to do something for the community. Someone asked him, hey, can you make this base? And he made the view. And it's doing 3 different things. I find this to be the widest reach. It's probably the most serendipitous because we don't know. I don't know what to expect. That's because it is showing notes that the active note links out towards. It is showing notes that link to the active note, and it's showing notes that share at least greater than 2 links in common, even if they are not directly connected. So for me, I use this the least, but I think it's really cool, just because it's a little bit too confusing, whereas I find these 2 on the left-hand side are really valuable in my work. Let's move on to the next synthesizer mode. We're going to move from dynamic relationships to dynamic ACE. ACE is my folder structure. You can see it over here. If you don't use ACE, you can still use the concepts shown here. All you need to do is, instead of having Atlas links, you'd have a folder, maybe it's called people, and you'd have people links show up here. But what this is doing is it's dimensionalizing all of the links that are linking to the active note. So let's start with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Now, in my add folder, the plus folder, nothing links to Arnold Schwarzenegger. However, in the Atlas folder, right here, I have 13 different notes that link to Arnold. And we can see that they're mostly movies, which you would expect. If we go to the calendar links in the right-hand sidebar, we can actually see that there's a random note from the top of this year that links to Arnold. I'm very curious about that. What is in there? I would have never remembered that unless it's here. Because the old way to do it is you have the linked mentions, and here's how the linked mentions works. It just has everything, and it's a mess. It's showing you everything. That's great. So that's fantastic. But it is a mess, and it's kind of overwhelming. When you can use something like this, where each of your folders are represented in the sidebars, and they show every note that is linking to the active and open note, you've essentially dimensionalized your knowledge. Everything that you click on is given a dimensional shape to it. Arnold has a few effort notes as well that link to it. And then we go to a huge effort of mine, the Linking Your Thinking book. And now check this out. I have 5 notes that link to the Linking Your Thinking book just in this add folder. I have 2 in the extras folder. I have 14 in the Atlas, 33 in the calendar, 47 in the effort folder. All of this is being dimensionalized, helping me greatly understand where all this lives and exists. How is this working? Let's just jump into Atlas. If we go to filters, you can see the first filter is just going to show everything in the Atlas folder, but the magic comes with this little piece of text here. So if you want to do this on your own, there it is. And if you want to get our Obsidian Masterclass, you certainly can do that as well. Now let's move on to the third and last mode for the synthesizer. We're moving from dynamic ACE to synthesizer dynamic maps. So maps of content are basically notes that look at all the different other notes in your system. They can link to those notes. You're typically not writing articles in a map of content, but the map of content would link to a bunch of articles, for instance. And that's just one example. There are many types of these higher order notes, and that's what this view, this instant dashboard, is giving me. So in the middle, we have a base, and it's called maps. And it appears to me that they are sorted by rank and also grouped by rank. So we can see the 5.3s, the 5.2s, the 5.1s, and this is really useful. Now in the left-hand sidebar, we have maps, standard maps, and then we have something called views. I'll touch that in a second. In the right-hand sidebar, we have all of my bases Apparently they're organized by alphabetical order, so we can see all 30 bases that I have. There are two more dynamic views that you can see, collections and views. I can't cover those now, I do apologize. Let's move on to the fourth archetype, our final modes, the creative dynamic dots. So if we jump into the creative mode and this mindset, I love this one so much. Now immediately, what do I see? In the middle, there's a dots base, but it's the sidebars where things come alive. In the left-hand sidebar, we have my thing notes. Essentially, these are nouns. These are concepts, things, levers, seasons, ideation. What else? The 5 canons of rhetoric. That's an old one, but it's back and it's surfacing for me right here, which is really cool. Next to that and below are people. So all these different people organized apparently by modified time. And so on the left-hand column are the nouns, and then as we go over to the right-hand column, these are the verbs. So now we have statement notes. Ideas are eerily like people. It's selfish not to share. These are really cool. And then another type of statement, another type of note is the quote note. So thinking is linking. Give me a lever long enough and I shall move the world. All at my fingertips. So as a creative, if you have different folders for these types of notes, it is so easy to now build these dynamic dashboards for yourself. For me, using the ACE folder framework, all this is possible because of the Atlas folder. If I drill into dots, you can see things, you can see people, you can see statements, you can see quotes. And so I simply just, under statements, you can see I just have file path starts with Atlas, dots, statements. And then the magic happens. Last mode in creative, the dynamic garden. Did we save the best for last? You can be the judge. So here, what we have is the garden base in the middle. And this one is pretty special because the digital garden, this dynamic garden, works off of tags actually. So if I go to the tag view, you can see I have garden, and then I have all these subtags: cultivate, plant, question, etc. So what you will now see is that all of those tags are represented in the left and right hand sidebars. On the left we have plant. These are notes that I want to plant in my Ideaverse by connecting them to different notes. Then you have the ones that I want to cultivate. I know for certain that I want to jump back into these notes and develop them further. Plant and cultivate are what I use the most, but there are a few other ways that I like to garden too, and I might have ongoing questions that I'm considering. Notes that were in daily notes, something I wrote that was great, but now it's sort of buried in a file name that I don't understand at a glance. So I want to repot this note. I want to give it a good file name and make sure that it can stand on its own and that I can link to it as needed. Notes that I want to revitalize, and simply notes in the bottom here that I want to revisit. If you name your workspaces by the 4 modes, our 4 ideation archetypes, inner guide, producer, synthesizer, and creative, you will have a tool that helps you clearly and effectively change your cognitive context. And that, my friends, is a bit of a superpower. And if you want to try out everything we covered immediately, as well as get detailed tutorials on mastering bases, workspaces, and properties all together, scan here to get started. And if you're new to Obsidian and want to learn 80% of it in 15 minutes, watch this video next.